Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my kitchen here at the farmer's table. Today's video is going to be something of an experiment. If you found me through this YouTube channel, the farmer's table, you may not know, I actually have another YouTube channel called Roots and Refuge where I've been vlogging and teaching gardening and food growing for about the last 6 years. And my idea in starting the farmer's table was that I wanted to really encourage people and teach people to cook from scratch, making the most of what they have. You know, looking at hard economic times, it's definitely nice to know how to make something out of nothing. I also just wanted to encourage a lifestyle of eating real food, enjoying real food, because I love real food. So this week, it's the week before Christmas. It's actually my birthday this week, and it has been crazy busy. I have not been able to make a video just because my kids are home from school, a lot of traffic, all of that in the kitchen. And I was talking to my husband Maya, and he is very wise, and I told him I was feeling a little stressed. I'm like, man, I have all these videos I want to make, but I keep having interruptions and not being able to do them. And he's like, you know, every video doesn't have to be teaching. He was like, every video doesn't have to have a typed out recipe. Just hang out with your friends the way that you do. And that's what I'm going to do today. I want to invite you guys to cook dinner with me here in my kitchen. The kettle's heating up right by you. And if you hear that, that noise, I got my mug here. I'm going to make some tea to get started. I have said for all the years that I have been vlogging that I did not want to make cooking videos. It's kind of funny. I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this last night because I think so often we are the first to disqualify ourselves from what we could be doing to make the most impact in the world. And I am not trying to make a cooking show. I'm really just trying to make dinner. And that's what I've said for a long time. And I viewed myself as such an imperfect self-taught cook. I can feed people, they'll like it, but trying to teach people was really overwhelming to me. And the truth is, occasionally it still is. So whenever Maya suggested that I come in and just make a vlog cooking dinner, I thought this might be a fun variety to add onto the Farmer's Table channel. Because there's a lot you can learn about the way a person casually cooks without a recipe. And the way I cook is that there's always a cup of tea or coffee involved. I've got it in a jar, but this is the black orange spice tea from we have a coffee roastery loose leaf tea business. And I just went, we have like the bulk bins of the tea that we package, and I just went and took a jar down there and got some of this. It's so good, it's my favorite. The first step of cooking dinner, obviously, we got to grocery shop. I've got a thawed chicken sitting out on the counter that I thawed a few days ago from our freezer, and I'm going to run out to the pantry and see what I can find. Our pantry is a building which we converted to store food. It is a complete disaster right now. You guys have been asking me for a tour. I will give you a thorough one once I have a chance to clean up in here. It gets pretty wild by the end of the season just because we're bringing lots of food in from the garden, saving seeds. And then where I store the food from canning and preserving, as well as the bulk buying that we do. And we also have a lot of like random stuff out here that it doesn't belong in here, but storage wise things can get a little hairy by the end of the garden season. My goal will be to completely reorganize this space probably over the course like the next month and a half, so that when we go into the new season, things will be nice and clean and I'll have a good inventory, know where everything is. This chaos actually makes sense to me. I can find anything in here. Now, it's a little bit difficult when I like send one of the boys out because it doesn't convey. I definitely have a hard time explaining what the things are. All right, so I've got a bucket of some sweet potatoes here. These are some kind of small purple ones that we had. They didn't get super big. No, the orange ones got huge. I'm gonna grab some of these. All right, the next grocery shopping stop is down here in the high tunnel. Got lots of cold weather plants growing down here, looking lovely. But I've got my sights set on one thing in particular, and that is a stalk of Brussels sprouts. So I'm just gonna grab one of these plants out. I'm just cooking dinner tonight for my husband and our 3 younger sons, so I don't have to harvest a ton of stuff. So if you've never seen how Brussels sprouts grow before, this is it. They grow up this long stalk. And I'm actually just gonna pull them off individually and throw them here in my grocery shopping bag. All right, put these in here. Now back to the kitchen. I've already preheated my oven in preparation for roasting my chicken. I'm gonna spatchcock this chicken. I have done a step-by-step video on that, which I will link below. If you wanna recreate this, my favorite way to roast a chicken. And honestly, it just makes such a good rounded meal to have a roast chicken, and you can throw just pretty much anything on the side. I put all these Brussels sprouts in a leaf to keep them from touching the dirty sweet potatoes. All right, so there are my sprouts. One thing I'm gonna do a little bit differently is today I'm actually gonna peel and cut up these sweet potatoes and cook them in the pan with the chicken, meaning they're going to cook in the fat that renders off the chicken, which will be really, really good. And in my spatchcock chicken recipe, I did like a dipping sauce that had lemon juice in it. Whenever these come out of the oven, I'm gonna wanna put something like lemon juice on the sweet potatoes. Since they're cooking in fat, I'm gonna need something to brighten them up. I should have checked for some herbs out in the garden. I might have to make a second trip because I think that would be really nice with the sweet potatoes cooked in the chicken fat. I have my scrap bucket, potato peeler, and we are going to just peel these potatoes. So one of my reasons that I did not want to do a cooking show is that so much of the time I do not cook with a recipe. In fact, as I have been writing down recipes to share with you guys, I've really had to like stop and consider how much of this am I putting in. Like, I'll go to measure what I would normally put in and just put it in my hand and look at it and be like, okay, that's about a tablespoon. Recipes are great training wheels. They're a really good thing to teach you what something roundabout ought to be like. If it's something that's complicated that I'm really unfamiliar with, I'll just follow a recipe to a T and see what happens. I'll taste it and I'll decide maybe I want to change this or that according to my preference. I feel like with anything that you decide to do in your life, it's really good to learn the rules, like learn how things work before you decide to break them. And that's why recipes are great training wheels, because they kind of show you what's working for someone else. And once you get comfortable with that, you can then cater it to yourself. But even still, even being a person that cooks extensive and complicated things, I would say the majority of the meals that we eat in our house look a lot like tonight. They look like whatever fresh ingredients I have out of the garden, you know, whatever meat I have, mostly that we grew on our farm, and then what I have in storage, either in bulk or, you know, things like potatoes that we grew in the pantry. I just throw those together in some configuration to create a pretty rounded meal. Sometimes when I cook sweet potatoes, I leave the skins on. A lot of times if I'm making like a hash or something like that, the reason I am peeling these particular sweet potatoes is these just got kind of weird in the garden. They just got really like gnarly skins. They had lots of little roots off of them. I don't know why that happened, but they're not very pretty. And inside they're this really lovely purple. So I'm just gonna go ahead and peel these. Sometimes when it comes down to stuff like that, you just have to develop your preference. When you're first starting cooking, people will say things like that and it feels really overwhelming. Like, I don't know what my preference is. You just gotta try it one way. If you don't like it, next time do it a different way. Cooking is one of those things that is just like a long-term process that you are going to grow and develop as a home cook the more you do it. And I think the biggest thing for a person who's getting started cooking, especially if maybe you've cooked like convenience foods, but you're learning to really like cook from scratch, is you really just need a few good wins. That is why as I have started this channel, a lot of the recipes I've been sharing are like my tried and true. They are the ones that I feel really confident that I can walk you through and equip you to be able to turn around and recreate them. And it has been blessing my socks off to hear you guys talk about how you made this spatchcock chicken and it was your favorite chicken you've ever cooked, or you made biscuits off of my recipe and it's the first time you've ever really been successful with biscuits, or you tried the bread recipe and it was hands down the best bread recipe you've ever tried. I've got some recipes for sure that would be it would really come down to a lot of preference. There are some recipes that I will share that some people are going to be like, that's not for me, you know, that are just very specific, but I've been going with the more basic and generic ones because I really want people to be able to get a few wins under their belt, because I genuinely believe we can learn to do anything. We just have to have the confidence in ourselves to keep trying after we fail. And when you're cooking, let's say you make something that's a real stinker, it's real bad, and then you think, I'm a bad cook. Well, a bad cook shouldn't keep cooking, surely. Like, if you're a bad cook, why would anyone want to eat your food? If you're a bad cook, why would you even want to cook? And when you start thinking, because you made a stinker of a meal, or you failed, and you think, I'm a bad cook, you will give up. You're not a bad cook. You just haven't learned yet. I'm terrible at cutting hair. I'm really bad at it. That's why I pay other people to do it. But I don't want to pay other people to do my cooking, so I had to learn. I will tell you, there is a dinner that I made that has gone down, and it is infamous in our house. It is the cheddar and cauliflower soup incident. That's what we call it. It was the worst thing I've ever cooked in my life. That wasn't like burnt to heck, you know, like occasionally you burn something real bad and you're like, oh, there it goes, you know, like messed up that one. But this one wasn't burnt terribly. It was one of those instances where I looked at a lot of different recipes and I thought, I can wing this. I could not. Like, it was gelatinous. It was a gelatinous, disgusting waste of a lot of cheese and cauliflower. And I kept trying to save it. I kept being like, I can fix this. I can make this work. And I kept adding stuff to it, trying to make it better. Didn't make it better. It just was like, at one point I had to just like count the sunk cost and be like, you know what, this is what it is, this is going to the pigs. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn their snouts up at it. But I had to realize, like, the more I put in this, the more money that I'm wasting and the more ingredients that I'm wasting. But it's hilarious because anytime my kids or my husband hears me telling somebody, oh, you can learn how to cook, I mess things up, everybody is like, the cheese and cauliflower soup, like, it's infamous. I'm saying that to say I can cook a lot of delicious things, but I can still mess up. I can still make mistakes. Things can still go sideways for me, but that doesn't mean I'm a bad cook. Your words matter. How you think matters. One thing that I think is a really empowering thing to say whenever you're learning to cook from scratch is just say that. I'm learning to cook from scratch. I'm learning about how food works. Those purple sweet potatoes dyed my fingers purple. One of the things I love about just owning being a student in anything is that students can do great things. Like, you can be a student and cook something really, really good, but then also still have areas where you are learning and growing. Like, it took me a long time to be comfortable handling raw chicken or whole chickens or really like meat in general, but specifically any sort of meat that was like somewhat in the form that it was alive. Like, I could handle a roast, but a whole chicken just really freaked me out when I first started cooking. That's wild for me to admit that now, considering we raise and process our own chicken, and I get in there with them and I can hang on processing day with the best of them. But I'll never forget the first time that I bought a whole chicken because I was determined to cook a whole chicken and like cut it up myself. And it was quite the dramatic ordeal. And for some of you, it may be wild for you to even imagine that being an issue. But the truth is, we just don't live in a culture where real food is quite normal. And if all you've ever had is boneless, skinless chicken breast that you bought at the store, or even beyond that, if all you've ever had is like fast food or restaurant food or convenience food where your chicken came wrapped in individual plastic servings that just needed to be heated up in the microwave, handling a whole raw chicken can be really overwhelming. And I can't make that overwhelm go away for you. I mean, you're gonna have to face that and get over it. It's just part of this. However, I can assure you, you're not the only one. The whole like be a student rule is something that I've really embraced in all aspects of my life. I've been gardening for a really long time, and I still say I still show up to my garden as a student every single time, but I'm still very much showing up to my kitchen as a student. One reason being, there's just like way too much stuff that, like, I feel like you could explore culinary techniques and recipes and different cuisines indefinitely, and you never learn it all. A friend of mine gave me a cookbook for my birthday the other day on like nourishing Asian cooking, and I opened it and I noticed that it uses a lot of the things that I'm able to either grow or forage here in my area. Some different mushrooms like wood ears that grow very prolifically here, and it had a recipe for daylily buds in it, and I was like, yes, it's something that I don't know how to do, and anytime I come across something, it's like a new lesson for me. I'm excited. The thing is, like, anytime you're learning a new skill, you're gonna have failures. Like, you're gonna have periods where you're gonna waste some food, and that really stinks whenever food is as expensive as it is right now. But I do feel like when you're viewing the things you're doing, like in the kitchen, as if you are attempting a new lesson in the classroom, even if you fail, you can get a lesson from it. You can say, okay, well, I won't do this next time, and it's not a total loss. Ultimately, it's just really redemptive to view your kitchen as a classroom as you're learning. This is gonna be loud. One of my favorite ways to like turn my kitchen into my classroom as far as cooking goes is I like to cook through cookbooks. I've only done it like actually fully with a few, but occasionally I'll get a cookbook and maybe I don't want to cook through the whole thing, especially if it has some like really obscure ingredients that I know my family's not going to eat. I won't necessarily do that, but sometimes I'll get a cookbook and I'll challenge myself to go through it and cook like 10 or 15 recipes out of it. And I don't necessarily pick them all out on the front end, but I will give myself a time challenge. So like, you know, okay, I'm going into January, I've got this cookbook and I'm going to cook 15 recipes out of this in January. And that way I'm not so hemmed in. Like some days if I'm feeling really inspired, I may make 2 recipes in a day, whereas if some days I'm really overwhelmed, there's no pressure to cook anything out of it at all. And sometimes we'll end up like adopting that recipe as one we're going to continue using, and sometimes nothing like that comes from it. But any way that I can really acknowledge and encourage myself to keep learning and growing and trying new things is a win for me. Alright, I think I let this get a little black. Look at there, case in point, mistakes still get made. I was hypnotically cutting all of the sweet potatoes. It's alright, it's still going to taste delicious. Alright, so these guys I'm just going to put in around the chicken. So these sweet potatoes are going to cause a little bit of steam, meaning that the skin on this chicken might not be as crispy as if you do this in the pan empty. And it may take just a little bit longer to come up to temperature, the chicken, which is fine. I've done this with regular potatoes. They get pretty soft in the amount of time that it takes to cook the chicken. One of my favorite things to do this with, cutting up vegetables and putting it in the pan with the spatchcock chicken, is carrots and rutabagas together. It's really, really good. And again, like with the skin not being crispy, I mean, I just burnt the tar out of the top of it, so it'll be fine. The meat will be delicious, and there will probably be some bits of good tasty skin in here. I forgot. I am going to go ahead and drizzle just a little bit of oil on these potatoes, and just put like a shake of salt and pepper on them. Not a whole lot. And I'm going to put herbs on the end, and I'm going to make some sort of sauce or something for them on the end, but just a little bit of seasoning. I'm going to set the timer for about an hour, but it may take a little bit longer than that with those potatoes around it. So I just made 2 separate trips out to the garden to get ingredients. I went first for herbs. I got them back, and almost back to the house I started thinking, this is going to be a really heavy plate of food. And so I decided upon walking in the house, you know what, I'm not going to cook those Brussels sprouts, we're going to do a chopped salad. So I turned back around and went back out, and I got a variety of kale leaves here. My go-to on cooking Brussels sprouts is almost always to roast them. Halved, quartered, roasted in a 400-degree oven with a little bit of fat on them and like salt, and then at the end a splash of vinegar or something to brighten them up, or you could even roast them with some bacon or pancetta, something that's like a good fatty meat. That's like my favorite way. However, since I'm already cooking sweet potatoes in the chicken fat, there's a lot of heaviness going on there. So I'm going to brighten this plate of food up. The first thing we're going to do is make a yogurt sauce for those sweet potatoes, and it would be really nice on the chicken also. So I went out to the garden, kind of slim pickings right now because it's freezing outside. I've got some cilantro, which is seasonally something that we're more accustomed to eating in the summer, but if you garden in the south, that's when cilantro really grows. So I've got lots of cilantro right now. And I'm going to chop this up. I got about a cup of yogurt in this jar, and I'm going to put an obscene amount of cilantro in it because I love cilantro so much. And I'm going to put a splash of lemon juice, maybe like a tablespoon. My oven's finally heating the kitchen up. So I've got a bowl here, clean bowl. I've washed my Brussels sprouts and my kale, and I am going to really, really thinly slice these Brussels sprouts. Now, you could potentially do this in a food processor. I'm just not in any hurry, and so I don't mind doing it by hand, like real thin. Tiny little thin slices. All right, so I'm gonna get all of these Brussels sprouts chopped up real small in this bowl, and then I'm gonna chop my kale and add that to it. Now I'm going to attempt to very thinly slice this kale. I've just got all the leaves together. I'm not gonna use all of these. I wanna keep the texture similar though to those sliced Brussels sprouts. So I'm going to chop them again this way, just to make sure we don't have any really long strings and inconsistent texture. I'd like each bite that you put on a fork to be, you know, relatively uniform. All right, add it in here, give it a little toss. All right, now I need to make a dressing. If you are trying to quit buying things from the store, you want to save money or just stop eating ingredients that you're not okay with, salad dressings are one thing that you can ditch behind, save a lot of money. I mean, like, if you're reading ingredient labels and you're trying to buy a high quality salad dressing, it's really easy to spend $5 or $6 on one container of salad dressing that doesn't have like really cruddy oils or corn syrups and stuff like that in it. But you can make salad dressing for significantly less than that. So I'm gonna do about half a cup of olive oil, like 3 tablespoons of vinegar or so. You want about less than half of the olive oil and vinegar, depending on how much olive oil you put in. I'm going to crush some garlic cloves in here. I'm going to put just a tiny little bit of maple syrup to sweeten it up. And then this is some thyme I grabbed in the garden, and I'm just going to pull these leaves off and put it in here. Then pepper and salt. Lid on and shake. I'll taste it for the sake of telling you about it, but I know that's good. I've made this so many times. And of course I do this in multiple different ways. Another thing you can do, it's real bright, which is what I wanted. You can add more sweet to it if you like your dressings more sweet. I wanted this to be bright because, again, I want this salad to be something that's going to offset the heaviness of that chicken and potatoes. Another thing you can do is like mix all this like I just showed you, but instead of putting maple syrup, if you have like a jar of jelly or jam that's down to the bottom, like you can't scrape out enough to make another sandwich, but it's on the sides, mix up a dressing in it and it'll pull all the jam off the sides and flavor it, so you'll have like a strawberry vinaigrette or a raspberry vinaigrette. And of course that has sugar in it, so you don't have to put any maple syrup or anything like that. And if you don't do sugar, you don't have to put the maple in there. It's just going to be more acidic and bright without. I like a little sweet to balance it out. Alright, so I'm going to dress these greens first. Just drizzling this over and tossing it. When it comes to things like raw Brussels sprouts and kale, bruising it a little bit is just going to make it better to eat. So it's not quite as crunchy, fluffy, raw tasting, you know, just kind of break it down just a little bit. So I'm going to like really squeeze these greens to bruise them while I'm dressing. And again, this is preference. I've got a little dressing left over I'm not going to put on here because I don't want it to just be sopping, but you know, one of my family members may decide to pour a little more on their individual salad. I've got some dried cherries here. Any sort of dried fruit is really good in a winter salad like this. That's what I would call this, is a winter salad. But I think these sweet cherries are going to be extra good with that really acidic dressing. And then feta, which I'm going to put this in here at the end after I've dressed the greens. You could do it before, but it might get kind of like mushy and a little more crumbled up than I like. So just that a little bit. Another thing that's really good on this is chopped up oranges. To do a chopped Brussels sprout and kale salad, and then cut oranges up. I just don't have any. But that is, my salad nuts are also good in here. Alright, my timer went off and my internal temp was at 165, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this chicken out. Put it right here on the counter. Beautiful. That will do. Maya's actually just pulling in with the kids. They've been Christmas shopping. I'm going to go ahead and plate this and show you guys hopefully quickly before all the noise comes back in. These sweet potatoes did get pretty soft. You can see that really nice color. And of course, tons of flavor in those. I just tasted those sweet potatoes. They're so good. Alright, a little bit of this salad on here. Okay, and then I'm going to, I like dark meat. So this is my plate right here. Right here. And I'm going to drizzle this on my potatoes. I love sauce on my potatoes, and I'm actually going to do a little bit on my chicken as well. That's it. That's my lovely plate of food. We grew almost all of this, which is pretty cool. You know, I had a couple store-bought things there mixed in, but this is fresh, seasonal, nourishing, colorful, beautiful, and most importantly, very delicious. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today and cooking dinner. I'd love your feedback. Do you want to see more videos like this? Do you like the vlogging while cooking and chatting thing? I think it would be occasionally nice to put these in. I still very much plan on sharing recipe tutorials, but I'd love to hear what you think. I bless you guys. Until next time.